Good afternoon, everyone. We've been told for decades that aging inevitably means decline, weaker muscles, less energy, slower recovery. But here's the truth: aging is not the problem. The problem is what we eat and what it does to our metabolism. I've spent my career studying how food drives disease and how the right food can reverse it. And today I want to talk about something surprisingly simple, just one vegetable that can help seniors restore muscle strength, like you're 40 again. This isn't hype, it's biochemistry. Our muscles don't fail because of age alone. They fail because of insulin resistance, mitochondrial dysfunction, and chronic inflammation, all of which can be addressed by specific nutrients found in real whole foods. So when I tell you that one humble vegetable can help bring back strength, stability, and vitality, I'm not talking about a miracle pill. I'm talking about giving your body the raw material it needs to do what it's designed to do, thrive, even as you age. For as long as most of us can remember, we've been told that growing older automatically means growing weaker. We accept it as if it were a natural law, like gravity. You hit 60, you slow down. You hit 70, you lose strength. By 80, you can barely get out of a chair without help. That's the narrative. But here's the problem: that story isn't biology, it's mythology. Yes, the body changes with age. Yes, muscles don't recover as quickly at 75 as they did at 25. But the idea that muscle decline is inevitable, that it's some fixed destiny written into our DNA, is flat out wrong. What's actually happening isn't simply aging. It's the cumulative effect of how we've treated our metabolism over decades. Let's unpack this, because understanding the why makes all the difference. When we talk about muscle, we're not just talking about how strong you look or whether you can lift weights. Muscle is your largest reservoir of glucose. It's where most of your metabolic action takes place. It dictates your balance, your independence, even your immune response. Lose muscle and you lose resilience. Now, why does muscle start to waste away in so many older adults? The textbook answer is sarcopenia, the gradual loss of muscle tissue with age. But sarcopenia isn't some unavoidable fate. It's largely driven by a combination of three modern insults: insulin resistance, mitochondrial dysfunction, and chronic inflammation. First, insulin resistance. This is the same culprit behind type 2 diabetes, obesity, and fatty liver disease. When your muscles can no longer efficiently respond to insulin, they can't take in glucose for energy or repair. So the fuel is there floating around in your bloodstream, but your muscles can't use it. They starve in the midst of plenty. Over time, that means they shrink. This is not just aging, it's a direct result of decades of processed food, sugar overload, and a system that's been asked to run on junk instead of nutrients. Second, mitochondrial dysfunction. Think of mitochondria as the power plants of your cells. They generate the energy that allows you to walk, climb stairs, even hold a glass of water steady as we age. Yes, mitochondria tend to decline, but how much they decline depends heavily on lifestyle. When your diet is loaded with ultra-processed food, stripped of fiber, overloaded with refined carbs, your mitochondria essentially get clogged. They sputter, they burn inefficiently, they leak out damaging free radicals. The result? Less energy in your muscles, less stamina, less strength. That's not aging, that's metabolic poisoning. Third, inflammation. We live in an environment where our bodies are under constant assault from sugar, from seed oils, from toxins in our food supply. That chronic, low-grade inflammation acts like rust on a car. It corrodes your muscle tissue, interferes with protein synthesis, and keeps your body in a catabolic state, breaking down rather than building up. Again, not a sentence handed down by time, but a consequence of what we put into our mouths and what it does to our cellular machinery. Here's the hopeful part. If the problem is metabolic, then the solution is too. Studies show that even in people in their 70s and 80s, Muscle can be rebuilt, strength can be regained, function can be restored when you give the body what it actually needs. This isn't theory, it's biochemistry. Muscles respond to fuel, and the right kind of fuel is not coming from a box with a barcode. It's coming from real food, from vegetables, from fiber, from micronutrients that switch on genes and repair mitochondria. Consider this in societies where diets are still based on whole foods, legumes, vegetables, roots, and minimal sugar. You don't see the same rate of muscle loss with age. You see 70-year-olds working fields, walking miles, climbing hills. Their bodies don't just fall apart on schedule. Why? Because their metabolism isn't broken. Their mitochondria are still humming. Their insulin still works. Their inflammation levels are low. The muscle is preserved because the system is preserved. Contrast that with what we see in industrialized nations. By the time many people hit retirement, they're already on multiple medications for blood pressure, blood sugar, cholesterol. Their diet has been predominantly ultra-processed for decades. Their muscles are marinating in excess glucose, excess insulin, excess cytokines. No wonder they feel weak. No wonder they think aging is the villain. But it isn't aging. It's what we've been told is food. And here's where it gets really exciting. Because if you change the inputs, you can change the outcome. When seniors shift even modestly toward whole, real food, muscle strength improves. When they get rid of added sugars and replace them with high-fiber vegetables, their insulin sensitivity improves. When they consume specific compounds, nitrates in beets, sulforaphane in cruciferous vegetables, polyphenols in leafy greens, their mitochondria actually regenerate. These aren't supplements or drugs. These are molecules built into plants, designed by nature to support life. So let's be clear, muscle decline is not inevitable. What's inevitable is that if you eat the standard Western diet for 60 years, you will lose muscle and you will lose it fast. But that's not aging, that's pathology. And pathology can be reversed. Seniors can regain strength, they can regain function, they can live not as shadows of their former selves, but with the vigor they remember from decades earlier. All it takes is giving the body what it was designed to thrive on in the first place. The narrative that weakness is guaranteed after 60, that's not science, that's marketing, and it's time we stop buying it both figuratively and literally. When people hear the phrase just one vegetable, they think I'm oversimplifying. They assume it's a gimmick, a marketing hook, a catchy way to get attention. But here's the reality. Sometimes one specific food can make a disproportionate difference, not because it's magic, but because of what's inside it. The chemistry, the molecules, the way it interacts with your metabolism. A single vegetable can become a catalyst. It's not that this one food does everything, it's that it tips the balance. It shifts your biochemistry away from decline and back toward function. Think about how catalysts work in chemistry. A catalyst doesn't create the reaction. It lowers the barrier. It makes the reaction easier, faster, more efficient. The same principle applies here. Your body already has the machinery to build muscle, to restore energy, to repair damage. That machinery doesn't disappear with age. It just gets gummed up. What the right vegetable can do is clean out the gears, remove the friction, and allow your body to do what it's been trying to do all along. Now, let's be clear. I'm not talking about potatoes or corn. Those are vegetables by classification, but starch bombs by function. They don't repair your metabolism, they tax it. I'm talking about vegetables that deliver bioactive compounds, phytonutrients that act directly on the metabolic pathways responsible for muscle health. Think about beets with their natural nitrates that enhance blood flow to muscle. Think about spinach with its plant-based compounds that stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis. Think about cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, kale, Brussels sprouts, loaded with sulforaphane, a compound that turns on detoxification enzymes and improves insulin sensitivity. Each of these is just one vegetable, but the effect it can have is profound. Why is that so important for seniors? Because when muscle begins to weaken, the cycle is vicious. Weak muscles mean less activity. Less activity means fewer signals for muscle growth. Fewer signals mean more decline. But introduce the right catalyst, and the cycle flips. Blood flow improves. Mitochondria wake up. Inflammation quiets down. Suddenly, the same walk to the mailbox feels easier. The easier it feels, the more you do it. The more you do it, the more the muscle responds. That's not a miracle. That's physiology being unlocked. Let me give you a picture of how this works. Imagine a 72-year-old who's been struggling with fatigue and balance. His doctor says it's just age. But he starts incorporating beets into his diet, roasted, juiced, however he enjoys them. Within weeks, his muscles are getting more oxygen because the nitrates in beets dilate his. More oxygen means his mitochondria produce more ATP, the fuel of every cell. More fuel means his legs feel stronger, his energy steadier. Did the beets cure him? No. They catalyzed the very processes his body already had the blueprint for, but couldn't access. And here's where the science becomes even more compelling. The compounds in these vegetables don't just act in one place. They ripple across systems. Sulforaphane from broccoli doesn't just protect muscles, it reduces oxidative stress in the brain. It supports detox in the liver. It lowers systemic inflammation. Polyphenols in spinach don't just build mitochondria in muscle, they improve endothelial function in blood vessels, reducing cardiovascular risk. One vegetable may start with muscle, but it reverberates through the entire body. This is the piece we've been missing in medicine. We look at disease in silos. Muscle loss here, heart disease there, dementia over there, but the body doesn't work in silos. It works as a network, which is why one dietary change, even something as simple as adding one vegetable, can create effects that feel outsized. They're not outsized. They're network effects. You change the chemistry at one node and the benefits cascade everywhere else. Now, skeptics will say, come on, one vegetable can't make you feel 40 again. And they're right. Not if you think of it as a magic bullet, but if you think of it as a catalyst, as the first domino that triggers a chain of improvements, then yes, the difference can be astonishing because the body wants to heal. It wants to restore balance. It just needs the right raw material, the right signal to get started. That signal can come from food. It's worth pointing out that pharmaceuticals can't do this. Drugs are designed to target one pathway, one receptor, one symptom. Food, on the other hand, delivers complexity. A beet isn't just nitrates. It's fiber, antioxidants, polyphenols, vitamins, minerals. All of those interact with multiple systems at once, nudging metabolism back into alignment. That's why just one vegetable can succeed where a pill cannot, because it works with the body's design, not against it. For seniors who feel stuck, who feel that weakness is inevitable, this is liberating. It means you're not at the mercy of your birth certificate. You can influence your trajectory with something as ordinary, as humble as a vegetable on your plate. And no, it doesn't mean you live on nothing but beets or broccoli. It means you understand the power of a single choice, a single catalyst to change direction. So the next time someone shrugs and says, that's just what happens when you get older, remember, aging may be inevitable, but decline is not. Sometimes all it takes is one vegetable to prove that your body is far more resilient, far more capable than you've been led to believe. When most people think about muscle, they think about strength in the narrowest sense. How much weight you can lift, how many push-ups you can do, or whether you can open that stubborn jar of pickles. But muscle is so much more than brute force. Muscle is function. Muscle is independence. Muscle is your ticket to living life on your own terms. Restoring muscle strength, therefore, isn't just about looking fitter or feeling stronger. It's about regaining the ability to function in the world, to climb stairs without fear, to get out of a chair without struggle, to carry your groceries without help. Muscle equals mobility, mobility equals autonomy, and autonomy equals dignity. Lose your muscle, and you lose your function. Lose your function, and you lose your freedom. And here's the critical piece, that loss of function isn't a foregone conclusion of aging. It's the result of metabolic decline, lifestyle choices, and environmental factors that weaken muscle and sap energy. Which means that restoring strength is not a cosmetic fix, not a superficial improvement. It's a restoration of life itself. It's giving people back their confidence, their resilience, their sense of self. Let's zoom in on what function really means. Function is being able to get down on the floor to play with your grandchild and get back up again without help. Function is being able to take that vacation you've been dreaming about and walk through the airport without having to stop every 100 feet. Function is being able to garden, cook, dance, or simply live without fear of falling. These are not luxuries. These are the building blocks of a meaningful life, and they all depend on muscle. Now, why does muscle loss translate so directly into loss of function? First, muscle is the engine of movement. Every step, every reach, every lift depends on it. When muscle fibers atrophy, movements become labored. When muscle fibers disappear, movements become impossible. Second, muscle is your body's metabolic sink. It's where excess glucose goes to be burned for energy. Without sufficient muscle mass, your blood sugar spikes higher, your insulin climbs higher, your fat stores expand faster. That sets off a vicious cycle of weakness, fatigue, and disease. Third, muscle protects against frailty. Strong muscles mean strong balance. They prevent falls, and falls are the single biggest predictor of losing independence in old age. One fall, one fracture, and life can shrink dramatically. But here's the part that's both sobering and empowering. Decline is not destiny. Muscle is plastic. It responds to input at any age. Even seniors in their 70s, 80s, and beyond can rebuild muscle mass and regain strength if given the right stimuli. This has been proven in study after study. Resistance training, paired with the right nutrition, stimulates muscle protein synthesis regardless of age. Mitochondria can regenerate, insulin sensitivity can improve, blood flow can increase. These aren't just anecdotes, they're documented biological facts. The machinery for restoration never disappears, it just needs the right switch to be flipped. And when that restoration happens, the benefits spill far beyond the muscle itself. A senior who restores strength is not just stronger, they're steadier, more energetic, more capable. Their risk of falls drops. Their metabolism improves. Their mood lifts. Their cognitive function sharpens. Because muscle doesn't exist in isolation, it communicates with the brain, the liver, the immune system. A strong body sends powerful biochemical signals that reverberate throughout the entire system. Restoring muscle strength, therefore, is restoring whole body function. Consider the psychological dimension. Seniors who feel weak often withdraw. They avoid activities they once loved because they're afraid of fatigue or injury. That withdrawal leads to isolation. And isolation leads to depression. But when strength returns, confidence returns with it. People re-engage with their communities, with their families, with their passions. Restoring muscle strength isn't just about adding years to life. It's about adding life to years. Think about it in practical terms. Imagine two 75-year-olds. One has allowed muscle loss to go unchecked. They struggle to rise from a chair. They use a walker. They need help with daily tasks. Their world shrinks to the dimensions of their living room. The other has made small but consistent changes, eating real food, adding targeted vegetables that support mitochondria, engaging in light resistance exercise. They can carry their own groceries, travel, and enjoy active time with their grandchildren. Same age, two radically different experiences. The difference is not genetics. The difference is function, preserved in one, lost in the other. And let's not overlook the healthcare implications. Seniors who lose function enter a cycle of dependence that costs billions in medical care, long-term care, and hospitalizations. Preventing that loss by restoring muscle strength is not just compassionate, it's practical. It reduces falls, fractures, hospital stays, and the emotional toll on families. It's one of the most powerful levers we have to improve public health. So when we talk about restoring strength, don't think of it as bodybuilding for seniors. This isn't about biceps and six-packs. This is about being able to walk across the room without fear, to climb the stairs without gasping, to maintain the simple joys of daily living. Strength is the foundation of independence, and independence is the foundation of dignity. The beauty of this message is that it's actionable. Restoring function doesn't require high-tech interventions or expensive treatments. It requires whole foods that nourish mitochondria, reduce inflammation, and support muscle repair. It requires simple, consistent movement that tells the muscles, we still need you. It requires changing the inputs so the outputs, strength, energy, function can follow. So let's stop treating muscle loss as an inevitable chapter of aging. It isn't. It's a signal, a wake-up call that the body needs different fuel, different care, different priorities. And when we respond to that signal, when we restore strength, we don't just rebuild tissue, we rebuild lives. People love to chalk health up to slogans. Eat less, move more, calories in, calories out, everything in moderation. These sound neat, but they don't explain anything. They don't tell you why the body falls apart or how to rebuild it. If we want to understand why one vegetable could restore muscle strength, we can't rely on cliches. We have to go deeper into the biochemistry. Because at the end of the day, your muscles, your metabolism, your entire health aren't governed by slogans. They're governed by molecules, enzymes, and pathways that either work with you or against you. And here's the good news. When you understand the chemistry, the benefit makes perfect sense. So let's break it down. Muscle strength doesn't decline because your birth certificate added another year. It declines because the fundamental processes that maintain muscle energy generation, protein synthesis, repair, start to misfire. Why do they misfire? Three big reasons: insulin resistance, mitochondrial dysfunction, and chronic inflammation. Sound familiar? We've talked about them before, but now let's pull back the curtain and see how the right nutrients from the right vegetables directly address each one of those. Start with insulin resistance. Insulin is the hormone that shuttles glucose into your muscle cells. Think of it as the key that opens the door so fuel can get inside. But after decades of high sugar, high processed food diets, the lock on the door gets rusty. The key doesn't fit well anymore. That's insulin resistance. Glucose can't get into the muscle, so it floats around in your blood instead, driving damage everywhere it goes. Meanwhile, your muscles starve, they weaken, they shrink, they give out. But here's where biochemistry comes in. Certain vegetables contain compounds, sulforaphane in broccoli, for example, that improve insulin sensitivity. They literally help oil the lock so the key fits better again. That means glucose can enter the muscle cells where it's burned for energy or used for repair. Suddenly, the same food you eat fuels your muscles instead of your bloodstream. The chemistry is real and the effect is tangible: more energy, more strength. Now let's move to mitochondria, the power plants of your cells. Every time you move, your mitochondria churn out ATP, the molecule of energy. But like any factory, mitochondria can get damaged, they can burn dirty, leak exhaust, and sputter out. That's mitochondrial dysfunction, and it's a hallmark of aging. Without ATP, your muscles don't contract efficiently, your endurance plummets, and you fatigue quickly. But again, food molecules can intervene. Take nitrates from beets and leafy greens. Once ingested, your body converts them into nitric oxide, a compound that improves blood flow and oxygen delivery to mitochondria. More oxygen means cleaner, more efficient energy production. Spinach and other greens also contain plant polyphenols that stimulate mitochondrial biogenesis, literally the creation of new mitochondria. More power plants, more energy. This isn't wishful thinking. This is textbook cell biology. When mitochondria are restored, muscles come back online. Seniors who once tired after 10 steps suddenly feel they can walk around the block. That's biochemistry at work. Now let's talk about inflammation. Chronic inflammation is the silent saboteur. When your body is inflamed, muscle protein synthesis, the process of building and repairing muscle, slows to a crawl. It's like trying to build a house during a storm. The materials are there, but the conditions won't let the work happen. Inflammation is fueled by processed food, refined oils, sugar, and gut imbalance. But certain vegetables provide compounds that act like firefighters, calming the storm. Sulforaphane again is one example. Polyphenols in cruciferous vegetables, carotenoids in carrots, flavonoids in spinach. All of these reduce inflammatory signaling. They lower cytokines, tamp down oxidative stress, and create the conditions where muscle can repair itself again. Inflammation recedes, protein synthesis revs back up, and the house gets built. That's not magic. That's biochemistry. And let's not forget signaling molecules called myokines. Proteins released by muscle during contraction that talk to the rest of the body. When muscles are healthy, they release myokines that improve metabolism, protect the brain, and regulate the immune system. But when muscle is weak, myokine signaling falters and the whole body suffers. By restoring muscle strength through improved insulin sensitivity, better mitochondria, and reduced inflammation, you don't just fix the muscle, you restore the conversation between muscle and the rest of the body. That communication is part of why seniors who regain strength often report sharper thinking, better mood, and improved overall vitality. Notice something here. None of this explanation involves calories. You could eat 100 calories of broccoli or 100 calories of cookies. Same number, totally different biochemical effects. One improves insulin sensitivity, generates mitochondria, and lowers inflammation. The other spikes glucose, raises insulin, and fans the flames of inflammation. Calories are irrelevant. Chemistry is everything. So when I say one vegetable can help restore muscle strength like you're 40 again, it's not a slogan. It's shorthand for the fact that specific compounds in vegetables directly target the root causes of muscle decline. They repair the lock and key problem of insulin resistance. They restore the factory function of mitochondria. They put out the inflammatory fire that blocks protein synthesis. They reawaken the biochemical pathways that were designed to keep you strong. And when those pathways wake up, the muscle follows. That's why this is so powerful. Because once you see the chemistry, you realize the body is not failing you, it's responding to the environment you've put it in. Change the environment, change the inputs, and the system recalibrates. Muscles rebuild, energy returns, function is restored, not because of age reversal, not because of a miracle, but because you gave your body the molecules it needed to run the programs it always had. So let's stop thinking of vegetables as side dishes, as afterthoughts. Let's start seeing them as catalysts, as biochemical interventions. They don't just sit on the plate. They enter your bloodstream. They enter your cells. They flip switches that change your trajectory. That's not marketing. That's biochemistry. And once you understand it, the benefit doesn't just make sense. It becomes inevitable. We've been taught to think of medicine as something that comes in a bottle, a pill, a powder, an injection, designed in a lab, prescribed by a doctor, dispensed by a pharmacy. That's medicine, right? Food, that's just fuel, just calories to get us through the day. But here's the reality. Food is, and always has been, the most powerful form of medicine. It can heal, it can restore, it can reverse. And unlike pharmaceuticals, which often target one receptor or one symptom, food works across the entire network of the body. It doesn't just quiet the smoke alarm, it puts out the fire. Let's start with why the food as fuel model fails us. If food were only about calories, then it wouldn't matter whether you ate 100 calories of soda or 100 calories of spinach. The math would be the same, right? But your body doesn't run on math. It runs on biochemistry. The soda spikes glucose and insulin, creating a surge that damages arteries, inflames tissues, and drives fat storage. The spinach, on the other hand, delivers fiber, phytonutrients, and micronutrients that support mitochondria, improve insulin sensitivity, and lower inflammation. Same calories, radically different outcomes. The difference isn't energy, the difference is chemistry, and that chemistry is the definition of medicine. Now, why does this matter so much for seniors and muscle strength? Because pharmaceuticals can't fix the root of muscle decline. You can take a statin, you can take metformin, you can take anti-inflammatories, but none of those restore the basic functions of muscle. They manage symptoms, they don't rebuild. Food, on the other hand, provides the raw materials and the signals that your body uses to repair and restore. When you eat cruciferous vegetables, the sulforaphane doesn't just sit in your gut, it enters your bloodstream, activates detoxification enzymes, turns on antioxidant defenses, and improves insulin sensitivity. When you eat beets, the nitrates don't just flavor your meal, they become nitric oxide, expanding blood vessels, improving circulation, and fueling your mitochondria. When you eat spinach, its polyphenols don't just color the leaves green, they trigger pathways that create new mitochondria, more energy, more resilience. That's not food as fuel, that's food as medicine. Think about how we traditionally use pharmaceuticals. We wait until a problem is full-blown, diabetes, hypertension, osteoporosis, and then we intervene with drugs to control the damage. But food works upstream. It addresses the root causes before they spiral out of control. Take insulin resistance. You don't wake up diabetic one morning. It builds over years, even decades, as your cells become less responsive to insulin. By the time your doctor diagnoses you, the horse is already out of the barn. But real food, rich in fiber, low in added sugar, high in protective compounds, can reverse insulin resistance before it reaches that point. It can keep the horse in the barn. And even if you already have the diagnosis, food can begin to reverse the damage in ways drugs simply cannot. This is particularly important for muscle health. The decline we call aging is in many cases just the accumulation of metabolic insults. Too much sugar, too little fiber, too much processed food. Muscles shrink because they don't get the fuel they need, the oxygen they need, the signals they need. Drugs can't provide those, but food can. Food provides the amino acids for repair, the antioxidants to quench free radicals, the polyphenols to activate protective genes, the fiber to restore gut health, which, by the way, feeds into muscle health through reduced inflammation and improved nutrient absorption. Every bite is a biochemical message. The question is, are you sending a message of healing or a message of harm? We have the science to back this up. Clinical studies show that seniors who adopt diets rich in vegetables, legumes, and whole foods see measurable improvements in muscle mass, strength, and function. Their mitochondria regenerate, their inflammation markers decline, their insulin sensitivity improves. These aren't fringe results, they're robust, reproducible outcomes. The problem is not the science. The problem is the story we've been told, that food is indulgence and medicine is science. The truth is, food is the original science, the original medicine. Modern medicine, at its best, mimics what real food already does. Of course, some will argue, if food is medicine, why not just extract the active ingredient and put it in a pill? We've tried that. Take vitamin E, for instance. In whole foods, it's associated with reduced oxidative stress and better cardiovascular health. But when scientists isolated it and gave it as a supplement, the results were underwhelming, sometimes even harmful. Why? Because food doesn't work as one molecule in isolation, it works as a symphony. The fiber, the polyphenols, the vitamins, the minerals, the thousands of phytonutrients, they interact, They support each other. They balance each other out. That's why eating the whole vegetable works in ways no capsule ever can. So what does this mean for seniors? It means that the path to restoring muscle strength, to regaining function, to living with energy and independence is not lined with prescriptions. It's lined with real whole food, not processed, not engineered, not stripped down to macronutrients. Real food grown in the ground, full of the compounds that your body recognizes and uses as medicine. Here's the empowering part. You don't need a doctor's prescription to get it. You don't need insurance approval. You don't need to wait for the next big pharmaceutical breakthrough. You can start today with what's on your plate. That roasted beet, that pile of steamed broccoli, that bowl of sautéed spinach, those are not side dishes. They're prescriptions written by nature, filled at the farmer's market, dispensed in your kitchen, and the refill, unlimited. So let's stop relegating food to the role of fuel, or worse, indulgence. Let's start treating it for what it is, the most accessible, affordable, and powerful medicine we have. Because when you see food as medicine, the idea that one vegetable could restore muscle strength isn't hype, it's science. It's biochemistry. It's the body doing what it's always been capable of, healing, repairing, thriving, once you give it the right prescription. And that prescription, more often than not, grows in the ground.